What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 36. Will the debt ceiling destroy business funding in America? That is the question. That is the topic. Mr. Ty Talbot, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Leo. Lakers got swept. Celtics looking to get swept. What a world. What a time.
You're right. I mean, those are the two biggest traditional basketball powerhouses in the NBA, the Lakers and the Celtics, and they both were just swept out. The Lakers, I expected to lose in 6, but not be swept and dominated. Celtics, I actually expected to win in 6, and they were just massively dominated by Miami. So, big props to Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. We were just at a Heat last year at the game last year at this time, right?
We were.
And, that's too bad for LeBron. Too bad. I mean,
he's got a lot. Last night he said he's got a lot to think about because he's been to plenty of conference championships, and he's only here to win. But guess what? He got the ball in his hands twice, end of the game, and just once didn't even get a shot off. The other time hit like the side of the backboard. I
probably should have passed that one to Davis, or who was hot all series long? Gleaves. Reeves? Gleaves?
Austin, I don't know.
Was it Austin?
Austin?
It is Austin, right?
Yeah, I think it is Austin Reeves. I don't follow the
It's
NBA.
a Reeves. That's right. It's an R.
Yeah.
It's an R. Yeah, we've got an Austin Gleave here, but this is Austin Reeves. So, very confusing for us. Yeah, similar guys. Well, very cool, guys. So our money topic, like I said, is will a debt ceiling default? You guys have been seeing this in the news everywhere. If it actually happens, which is unlikely, but if it did, what would that do to business funding? What would that do to your business as a business owner? How would it affect the country? It is important to take a look at these things because they could actually happen. And as business owners, as leaders, it's our job to be prepared. So that's our money topic for the day. What's the mindset topic?
Mindset piece, Leo. We're finally going to do it. We're going to talk about how the Air Jordan movie breaks down the genius strategies that made Nike billions.
Well done. I'm excited for that. Phil Knight, of course, Ben Affleck did a great job in the movie, and Matt Damon as well. And then the mastery topic we may or we may not get to. There has been a housing bust, specifically with apartment investment syndicates, of which Ty and I are apartment investor syndicates. And so this is important. As I was reading this, I'm like, holy crap. And I started texting Mike, and Mike's like, oh, we're good. I'm like, oh, that's good news. Yeah. So anyway, if you are a real estate investor, if you've ever looked at these syndicates, and apartment buildings have been on fire the last decade, there have been some changes, some risks, and you should be aware of those. If you're looking to invest in the future or now. We may or we may not get to that one. If we don't get to that one, we'll tap it next time because we're definitely going to get to this sports topic. Tell us about the sports debate we're going to be touching today.
Yeah, sports topic. Again, we're NFL guys. There's a lot to talk about with NBA, hockey. We can do that another time. We don't really care all that much. But in the NFL, we're going to break down the GOATs at every offensive position that aren't currently in the league, and say, are there guys in the league that could crack that list? We're going to break that down and decide. And if we have time, we'll get into the defensive GOATs, but that's probably going to be next episode.
Sounds good. Love offense, love the NFL. That's going to be fascinating to dive into that and see what's going on there. All right, let's dive into topic number 1. This is our money topic. Will a debt ceiling default destroy business funding as we know it? A lot of the content here we're getting off of a Wall Street Journal article, how a debt ceiling crisis could play out on Wall Street and across America. It says the U.S. government is edging dangerously close to being unable to make critical payments as Congress engages in debt ceiling brinksmanship. Failure to pay its bills on time could come as soon as June 1st. The U.S. government has never defaulted on Treasury bonds. Such an event would have the potential to roil the multi-trillion-dollar markets that underpin the global financial system. Well, very cute diction and words there. I appreciate the Wall Street Journal breaking that down. So you guys have been seeing this in the news. Ty, how much have you been seeing this in the news, this debt ceiling default thing, whether it's YouTube? I mean, because, the legacy news, like turning on Fox, NBC, MSNBC, CNN. I mean, I think fewer and fewer people are watching that. More and more people are tuning into other places. Where have you seen this? And I'm kind of curious, where do you consume news?
Yeah, you're seeing it pretty much everywhere now. And it's always just talks resumed, talks halted. Biden says they're getting closer, talks halted, talks resumed. It's like, what the hell are they doing? But, I'm seeing it everywhere. I'm mostly, like I told you a few weeks ago, I'm off social media. So I used to get most of my news on like Instagram. That's how I did it. I used to follow Fox News. I got a little upset about that whole Tucker Carlson thing, so I've shut that out. Right now, it's just Twitter, and you're definitely seeing a lot of tweets about it. But it seems like it's mostly a lot of jokes, a lot of people just mocking our government and our system for still not being able to come to a conclusion and make a decision. But Twitter, and I read the local news every single day, oddly enough, Leo. KSL, yeah.
Okay. That's fascinating. I think without a doubt, there's been this transformation, this trend in the last 3-4 years especially, and I think things that are happening at Fox News and CNN have only accelerated this, where people more and more often are getting their news on social media, or specifically, instead of following like these old TV shows, these channels, the CNNs, the Fox Newses, the MSNBCs, and most people are, 50, 60, 65 and older that are watching these. And so that younger generation that advertisers want to hit up, the 25 to 50 generation there, those guys and gals are consuming content online more and more, and so they're not going to the Fox Newses. And so where Fox News thought for sure, we'll just plug in another guy or gal like Tucker Carlson and do well, and that's not happening, and their ratings have been cut in half, and they're in massive, massive trouble because people are consuming them elsewhere. And so I've been watching a few different YouTube channels. There's one called Breaking Points that is very objective, both sides of the news. One guy worked for Tucker Carlson. The gal worked more liberal media, and they come together, and I like how they look at media. And there's obviously PBD podcasts. Megyn Kelly's awesome. But the bottom line is, with this debt ceiling, is if it did happen, like how would that actually impact us as business owners, as business funders? Like how would that impact us? First off, it means all those U.S. Treasury bonds, they don't get paid back. So people invest trillions and trillions of dollars in Treasury bonds. Businesses, countries, 60% of the world reserve, money is put in by central banks from Europe to Asia, even China, is put into U.S. Treasury bonds. That's why the U.S. dollar is the reserve currency of the world, because people just buy Treasury bonds. They figure it's the safest place they can put their money to generate a return, even though it's been a very small return the past decade. Now it's a bigger return, right? Now the Fed fund rate is up to, I think, 5%. And so at 5%, that's not bad. Even though inflation is higher than 5% in a lot of countries, that still means you're kind of covering the cost of inflation. But if the Treasury bond has been like the number one safest asset that everyone in the world has invested in over the last 100 years, if there's a default, well, now it's not the safest anymore, right? So the U.S. dollar probably goes down. U.S. Treasury bonds are invested in a lot less. It puts the global currency thing as the reserve currency at risk. And if you're a bank and all of a sudden the economy's weakened and all these negative things can happen, they might pull back lending to businesses, to consumers significantly, which would slow everything down. So it would be pretty terrible. But how often, you're a young guy, what are you, 31, just turned 31, right? Like how often have we heard about this damn debt ceiling? Isn't it like every year that it seems like we're, debt ceiling again? Yeah,
and miraculously it's always sorted out right at the end. Like I don't get it. It's almost like it's a doom and gloom, clickbait, get all totally the news going. It ticks me off. But yeah, they're gonna figure it out. If they don't, lending will be disrupted drastically. Yeah. Interest rates will go up. Bank runs could occur. They're gonna figure it out.
They will. And if you're President Biden, you don't want to be the first president ever to, be the president when a default happened. And, same with Congress. It's never happened. So most likely scenario is that the last minute an agreement is reached because neither side wants to look terrible. But the bottom line is, and the Republicans aren't great at this either, is Republicans are going in, McCarthy's saying we want to cut spending, and we're not making a deal until we decide to balance the budget, which that would be smart. Who can disagree with balancing the budget? And if you just think you can kick the can down the road forever and our economy is going to be okay, you're lying to yourself. It's like basically, you take out hundreds of thousands of dollars in credit card debt and you make $100,000 a year. Well, eventually that's going to catch up to you and it's going to kick you in the ass, and you just can't continue to make the minimum payment forever. Eventually you're going to have a medical emergency, a job loss, and you're going to default on all that credit card debt. if you just took it out for foolish reasons instead of, going into a business, investing it in smart things. If you were just taking it out to go on vacations, buy clothes, have an expensive car, you're going to get in trouble. And that's what our economy's been doing. We're just like, I just put on the card, just ask for a credit limit increase. Don't worry. Just keep doing that forever. And eventually, it's going to blow up in your face. And that's where we're at as a country.
Maybe we need to get some people in politics that are actually going to have to deal with the repercussions, because all of our politicians are so damn old that they're not going to be the ones that even have to deal with it. Maybe that's why they don't give a shit where we're at.
Yeah, it's like so many are in their 70s, their 80s. Hell, Biden's 82, going to be 86 if he gets reelected here. Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell looks like a freaking mummy out there. So I don't give a damn if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Mitch McConnell's Republican. I think he should be kicked out of office. Guys, vote for younger people. We've had enough of the old people making decisions. We saw how that worked out the last 3 years. Not so good when old people are making all the decisions. So that's my 2 cents on elections moving forward. All right, guys, let's move to our mindset topic. This is one, if you have not seen that Air movie about Air Jordan, how Nike got them, you should. It's a fantastic movie. And actually, I watched it when we were in Orlando last night there and streamed it. So here's kind of the story. Here's the background. So Michael Jordan has just been drafted in the 1984 draft. Also, John Stockton was in that draft. Hakeem Olajuwon was in that draft. Sam Bowie was the number 2 guy drafted ahead of Jordan. And, that didn't work out so well for the Portland Trailblazers. And Portland's been upset about it, for the last 40 years or so. But at that point, shoe contracts were starting to get big. They were a thing. So Nike has this budget of $250,000 a year that can go towards new draft picks to wear their shoes. And so the biggest one at the time was Converse, and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, were the Converse guys, and some of the other ones, I think Dr. Julius Erving as well. And then the next tier, they wore Adidas. And Jordan, even though North Carolina was required to wear Converse when he was in college, he loved Adidas. They had these full suit, warm-up suits, and people loved him. Jordan was all about them. And so he was already planning on signing with Adidas. And so Nike was third tier with a very small percent of the market. Most of their income came from track shoes. And so that's where they're at the point. And so in this show, Matt Damon plays the Nike executive who's brought in to build the basketball section up so that Nike can start making profits with basketball. And right now they're losing money and they're thinking of just killing the entire basketball department. Imagine that, it now makes $4 billion a year, just Air Jordan's brand. And so there they are trying to decide what to do. And Matt Damon he's a basketball junkie. All he does is watch basketball film, and he watches when Michael Jordan makes this championship shot, and he's like, there's something special about this guy. He was excited. He was not nervous to take that big shot, even though the other guy on his team was kind of the bigger star, James Worthy, Big Game James. So he says Nike needs to go all in. Instead of splitting their budget between 3 or 4 players, give the whole thing to Michael, and we can sign him, and we'll change everything about Nike and basketball. Everyone thinks he's insane, so that's kind of the story. Now, the first thing he does, the first principle that you can take and put into your business is do what the competition is unwilling to do. So one of the things I think we saw in business funding in our business is there was a lot of events and a lot of funding companies would fund these live events for students to start businesses. We were doing a lot of e-commerce in 2020. And then there was, those went away, and the funding companies that didn't adjust really struggled. And those who said, all right, we're going to do virtual events and transition to that did well. So if you were doing what the competition wasn't willing to do, then you did well. And then when live events did come back, a lot of people still didn't go to those. And maybe if you jumped in on those, which we jumped in back in those too. So just doing the things that the competition's not willing to do. For us, it's educating, providing more value to the client. So guess what Matt Damon does? He's like, well, I'm going to fly from Portland, clear over to North Carolina, and go meet with Michael Jordan's parents. Because they said, don't call him. That he's talking to Michael Jordan's agent. Don't you dare bother his parents. Don't give them a call. Okay, cool, I won't call him. So he flies over. So he does what the competition's not willing. That's the first principle. The second thing is he's focused on Michael Jordan. At that time, it was, hey, here's a shoe. You can wear it. But he says, we're going to make a shoe that's a Michael Jordan shoe. never been done. There was no Magic Johnson shoe. There was no Larry Bird shoe. They just wore whatever, Converse shoe that they wanted. So then they did a more customized solution that others didn't do it. So as you kind of hear these two things, and then the third thing he did when they sat down in the presentation, because he convinced Mom to bring Michael to Portland. Michael wasn't excited, but he's like, fine. His mom is a badass, and she gets the best deal out of him. But when Matt Damon presents the deal to him, he's like, listen, you're going to be famous forever. You're going to be built up. America loves to build people up. You know what else America loves to do? Tear them down. You're going to be torn down, and how you respond to that is going to, make everything and define everything for your life. You think about it, his dad was killed by these kids. They just found him sleeping. His dad was driving to a game or something, and they killed his dad. He had this gambling fiasco thing, and the baseball thing didn't work out for him. America tore him down, and then he came back, and he rised back up again. So just kind of cool how he was willing to tell the customer the truth. Most people, I think, don't do that. So what are your takeaways business-wise as you kind of hear this story? What do you think people should take away if you're a business owner and you look at and now Nike, $4 billion a year just on the Air Jordan brand alone. Michael gets a rev share of that, which no one had ever done at that time.
Yeah, I mean, my initial takeaway on this and kind of knowing a little bit of the backstory as well is it's like we talked about either last week or the week before. Nike didn't come in and invent the basketball shoe. They came in and created something that they revolutionized something that was already there. And it was the fact that they made it unique. They made it theirs. They created a story behind it. They personalized it, right? I if I'm remembering correctly, you probably know more about this than me, but in the early days of shoes really coming out to being, it was Converse. They were always all black or all white. There wasn't really color involved.
Oh, this is huge.
And so Nike said, you know what, we're going to be different, and created this bright red and black. It's the Air Jordan 1, right?
Yes.
And so I think they got in trouble for it.
They got fined.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan's getting fined every game because it's supposed to be more white than color. And Nike's like, screw that. He's a Chicago Bull guy. It should be more red. And so Nike says they're going to pay the fine, which I think is like $2,000 a game.
Yeah. And that, I mean, as an entrepreneur, sometimes paving your own path and being willing to say, you know what, I believe in what I'm doing more than this little fine. It's saying this is totally off base, but for some reason my mind went there. I think his name was like Johnny Mosley or Johnny Moxley or something. I remember watching the Olympics as a kid, and these downhill, these freestyle moguls, they weren't allowed to put their skis over their head. They couldn't flip. And this guy said, you know what? This is bogus. This is old school. It's time to change this. In the Olympics, he was a shoo-in for the gold. Says, you know what? F this. It's time to change the sport. And he throws a backflip. And because of his willingness to do that, they changed the rule. And so it's one of these things, and he'll be remembered forever because of that. If you want to make a name for yourself, you want to disrupt an industry, you have to go places that other people aren't willing to. And that's case in point. That's what Nike did right here. And now, obviously, the rest is history. Everyone probably owns a pair of Nikes.
100%. Yep. Now, by far, the number one basketball shoe brand in the country, in the world. And Air Jordan's brand alone is $4 billion a year. And it's not going anywhere. Now it's expanded into everything. Like you see Jordan in football. You see Air Jordans in baseball, soccer, golf. Exactly. So, yeah, an incredible story, and being willing to do things different to disrupt an industry. Just a lot of takeaways there and principles for success with your business. All right, we're going to save our mastery topic about housing for next time. Let's jump into our sports topic here, which is the NFL's GOATs at every offensive position. What we're looking for is current players to crack the list when they retire. So we're not counting anybody who's already retired. For example, Tom Brady's already retired. Maybe he's the basketball GOAT. So who is a current player right now? And take control of this, Ty.
Yeah. So what this list is a list of the greatest players at every offensive position that are no longer in the league. And so my look at this was, okay, based on the GOATs that are retired, no longer in the league, are there any current players that could potentially crack that? So when we look at this list, Leo, let's take your pick. Who's quarterback here?
I mean, I have to go Tom Brady, the man, the myth, the legend. We're talking about 7 rings, 5 Super Bowl MVPs. To win a Super Bowl with 2 different teams and do it the way he did, more impressive than Peyton Manning doing it for Indianapolis and then the Broncos, whereas Broncos defense kind of won. I mean, Tom had his fingerprints all over that Tampa Bay Super Bowl, and he did it against Patty Mahomes, which
Absolutely.
is today's premier talent.
And my there's no question about that. On the list, what did I put a note in here? Anyone that can crack the code, no chance. Not even in our lifetime, that won't happen. We'll never
The
see that
only guy who could do that, in my mind, is Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's still young. He's already got 2 rings, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. So if anybody could, he could, because he's such a unique talent.
Yeah.
He is disrupted. I mean, footwork is all about what it is, and I preach it to Jonas, my 10-year-old who's a quarterback, every single day. But then he'll watch Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes' footwork isn't always perfect, but he can make all these throws at different angles with different footwork and different scrambling. And if you can do that, boy, it makes you dangerous.
Yeah, that and the Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes relationship there is pretty unique.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow's another one that comes to mind. I love that guy. He's got the winner's mentality.
He's a star.
I don't see in our lifetime anyone doing what Tom Brady did. But you're right, Pat Mahomes.
Well, and to play that long, too, at that high a level,
Oh.
because this is a sport. And keep in mind, Tom played in the 2000s, and the quarterback was not protected in the 2000s like they were, in the 2010s and beyond. Like, you were getting smashed. I mean, he lost a whole season because the dude took out his ACL before that became a rule. So he was taking a lot more hits and contact than guys take. I mean, now the quarterbacks barely get touched, and it's a 15-yard flag. And so different ball game. And so they should have the ability. But even then, like, it's very difficult to stay healthy and achieve at a high level as a quarterback. So the odds are definitely against him. If there's anyone you could bet on, it would be Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. He's got a lot of ability too.
What's wild here is there was 50 different NFL analysts voting. He got 44 of the 50.
Oh yeah.
Could probably guess the other 2. Joe Montana got a few. Peyton Manning got a couple votes, and that was it.
Yep.
Running back. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky.
This is dicey.
Running back, I don't know if this was because he just passed away. They gave it to Jim Brown, which I disagree with that, but I don't disagree with that based on anyone currently in the league. I don't think anyone – it's not a running backs league anymore. It used to be. It's not. Derrick Henry's impressive, but he's got, 8,800 yards compared to some of these guys that are, 12,000 rushing yards. It's just I don't see Derrick Henry ever getting there. The others receiving votes, Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, and Emmitt Smith. If you ask me, greatest NFL running back of all time, I'm immediately going Barry Sanders.
Oh, me too. Not even close.
So ESPN, we disagree with you on that one.
This guy had everything: the speed, the quickness, the balance, the ability to break tackles. He could absolutely. Now, the one thing I don't remember how good his hands were.
I don't either. That is.
And maybe he was just so good that he actually never had to catch a pass. I don't remember that. I felt like Emmett had pretty good hands, but
yeah.
I mean, Barry Sanders is on a different. If you'd have put Barry Sanders on those Dallas Cowboy teams, they probably would have won 2 more championships because he was so unstoppable. Because everybody in the stadium knew he was going to get the ball, and he'd still come out of an 8-9 box and bust it for 40 yards down the sideline, break tackles. And you know what was really impressive about this guy? I don't think he ever had an injury season, and he hardly ever took hard hits. He was so agile and so quick that he knew when to get down and when he was going to be able to break tackles.
Watching his highlight reel reminds me of watching Reggie Bush his last year of college.
Oh, man,
but he's
I love
doing
that
this
guy.
in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's incredible. The only other guy I thought of that immediately came to mind, some of you may not agree with this, but go back and watch that highlight film and look at his stats. And he's actually an honorable mention here. It was LaDainian Tomlinson. That dude was extremely impressive. But so we disagree with ESPN, but it's no one currently in the league that gets our vote.
Have you ever watched the videos, though, of Jim Brown?
I've watched a few.
Yeah. If you watch Jim Brown was like 6'2", 215, and this was back before, everybody ate right and had all the perfect workout regimens and all the supplements that you could take. And so he was just this incredibly gifted specimen as an athlete, and he had the strength, and unlike like a Derrick Henry, like this dude had breakaway speed.
Yeah.
So he had sprinter speed, and had he played in today's NFL, probably would have been similar to an Adrian Peterson, but even better. There was another guy. I mean, Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
During his heyday, that guy was special because he had all of the different abilities too. About the same size, probably a closer, I think, simulation to Jim Brown than Derrick Henry because he was so quick and explosive. So pretty similar there. So I mean, yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, what he would have done in today's league, but he was incredibly talented. He only played 8 years. He controlled his earning capability. He did acting. I mean, this guy killed it for a long time. And 87 years old. I mean, he definitely lived a while.
Yeah, I mean, he was the league MVP 3 different times, which for a running back in an 8 or 9 season career, that's pretty dang impressive.
Multiple championships, too.
Yeah.
Multiple championships.
Yeah. Wide receiver. We might disagree on this one, Leo, because I know you got to – I don't really remember the era of Jerry Rice. Very, very, very young boy when Jerry Rice was going off. Obviously, I can look at his stats. I can watch the highlights, but I don't have a ton of memories of actually watching him play, and I think that is probably impacting my decision here. And our older watchers viewers may disagree.
Who do you got?
Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase will both go down as better wide receivers than Jerry Rice at the end of their career.
Well, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah, no, I watched Jerry, as I was growing up in the 80s, in the 90s. This guy played forever. I mean, he played with Gannon and the Raiders in the Super Bowl, and what was it, 2001? It was February of 2002 that they played together. But I mean, just an incredible. No, actually, that would have been 2003. Boy, man, Jerry played forever.
Yeah.
But this dude just had incredible work ethic, incredible hands, ran the perfect routes when the ball was in the air, and then he was one of the first guys who you could throw a 5-yard slant to, and he'd break 3 tackles and run 80 yards. Like, that was not a thing before he did that. Before that, the only way you were getting a long touchdown is you streaked down the field, you did a post, and the quarterback got you the ball, and you beat the cornerback and the safety, and you got down. But this guy would break tackles, and the yards after catch was a big deal that had never, it wasn't a thing back then. Like, you were a possession receiver, you made a catch, you got a first down, and once in a while you broke it deep and you caught a long, deep ball. But this guy could catch deep, and then he was always clutch. Always clutch. When you needed a big play on 3rd and long, he was going to make it. There was a game where it was against, I think, the Cowboys, and the 49ers were down by a touchdown, and they drove down the field. They got to the 30, and I think Jerry runs a post corner, catches it, jumps up, makes the catch, both feet into the corner. They win 28-27 to get into the playoffs. Like, he was that kind of guy that could make, and every Super Bowl, multiple touchdown passes. I'm pretty certain he has the Super Bowl record for the most receiving yards, most catches, and most touchdowns to this day.
I think maybe that got beat. One of those got beat by Cooper Kupp in this single game Super Bowl.
In a single game.
I know Cooper Kupp is the only other wide receiver to get a Super Bowl MVP, and that's another dark horse here. A lot of people. Cooper Kupp's kind of had the injury plague, but he has the single season yard record now. He has the Super Bowl MVP. Cooper Kupp is a sleeper there. I don't think
I love that guy.
Yeah,
I love that guy.
I don't think you can really compare Cooper Kupp to Jerry Rice, sadly. But
no, not yet. He's going to need another decade of some great numbers and great playing, and more Super Bowls, which is going to be tough to come by.
And here's the thing, Leo. Jerry Rice had Joe Montana and Steve Young.
That's a good point.
He had some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
That's a good point.
Jamar Chase has Joe Burrow, who I think is going to play a really long time. Justin Jefferson is the most talent, like just pure talent of the three. He's the most talented naturally. But if he doesn't find someone better than Kirk Cousins, that's going to be his
That's
problem.
going to be tough. It's kind of like Randy Moss. Like when Randy Moss started his career, I mean, he was on a trajectory where he was going to be the GOAT, I think.
Yeah.
And then he ran into that exact same issue, right? Because he started out with Randall Cunningham, who was definitely at the end of his career, had an amazing couple-year run, and then he had a little run with Dante Culpepper, and Culpepper didn't have a long career. He wasn't consistent. And then he was sent into purgatory at the Raiders, and there was no one throwing him the ball, and he's like, oh, he's just depressed, and I get it. Didn't have anyone to throw him the ball on a terrible team. And then he got to play with Tom and the Patriots there for a little bit and really rejuvenated his career. But you're right. You look at a guy like Randy Moss. Had he played with a Joe Montana and a Steve Young for 15 years, what kind of numbers does he put up? I mean, arguably, yet I would say he is more talented than Jerry. Is he a harder worker? Is he more No, not. I mean, Jerry was at age 41 or 2. They're running these San Francisco hills. You ever seen this?
I heard about this in the Bill Walsh book.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, right behind his house, there are these nasty, nasty hills, and you're going straight up at a really high incline. And he would invite other guys on the team to go and do this workout, and they couldn't do it. Like, he would leave them all in the dust. I remember listening to an interview by Steve Young after the 49ers won the Super Bowl in February of 1995. Steve goes the next week to clear out his locker, and he goes out on the field, it was a great year. They won a Super Bowl. And guess who's out there running wind sprints? Jerry Rice. A week after winning, and by the way, he separated his shoulder, 3 touchdown passes in that game that Jerry Rice caught, and he's running wind sprints. So in terms of work ethic and discipline and just always improving on his craft, you can't see anyone who did it better than Jerry Rice.
He definitely deserves it right now. No question. I stand by it. I think it might be Jamar Chase, but I think someone's coming for his
Jamar
stats.
Chase has the better opportunity because he's with Joe Burrow.
Yep.
So Jefferson's going to really need some. I don't know how much longer Kirk Cousins is going to be the guy in Minnesota. I feel like he's always on the edge where he's good but not great.
Yeah, he's not.
Did you see that article on ESPN about Matt Ryan? Like the pains of being really good but not great.
I saw that.
And it's like, that's tough. So Jefferson, you know what's interesting about Jefferson? My daughter has never liked to watch football. Do you remember that game last year when Jefferson catches this 4th and 18 against Buffalo?
Yep.
And they come back and win that game. My daughter's watching, she's like, oh, that dude is unbelievable. She loved that guy, and so she starts watching football. And then she came to me and she's like, Dad, when is it? And she's 17. Like, she's never liked sports or football, but she's a dancer. It's like, when is football starting? It's kind of boring without football. Like, I want to watch. I want to watch that Jefferson guy.
What's crazy to think about too is in college for that national championship, Joe Burrow was throwing to both of those guys and had Clyde Edwards-Helaire in his backfield. So no wonder they won that.
Jefferson was on that team.
Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, and it might have been there's one. I'll have to look it up.
Dude,
Can't
Randy
see,
Moss's
maybe chat us in.
tight end son was on. What happened to him? Did he not make it?
He didn't really make a splash in the league. I know we're running out of time, so we'll quickly go through these other ones. The tight end that got voted, you could probably guess it was Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah.
My personal take is here in about 3-4 years, as soon as Travis Kelce retires, Gronk will be getting dethroned.
I agree.
Travis Kelce's insane. At tackle, it's hard. You just look at those old offensive linemen, and they just look like they were bred different back then. I don't know what it is. But I personally think that Lane Johnson, that tackle for the Eagles, will go down as if not the greatest, one of the greatest tackles of all time. Like, he hasn't allowed his quarterback to be touched in some ridiculous amount of dropbacks. Like, he is insane. Zach Martin is a current guard in the NFL that I could maybe see going down, but as one of the greats. But you look at this, and where did it go? Larry Allen.
That would be my dude. John Madden was in love with this guy. Like, he would just bring him. He would just have little stories about Larry Allen. Like, every time the Cowboys were playing a big game on Sunday, and I couldn't disagree with any of them. I mean, that Dallas Cowboys offensive line was far and away the best offensive line for like a 5-6 year stretch, and that guy anchored the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't think Zach Martin's going to be taking that spot over. And then at center, I love Jason Kelce, man. We might have two Kelces on this list, but truth be told, I didn't know who Mike Webster was when I looked at this. He's an older center. I know who Jim Otto is. I have a signed Jim Otto football my dad had given me. I was surprised not to see Jeff Saturday on this list, but
he's a little bit undersized guy, so not as big. Who was that dude who was the center for he was he was a center for the Steelers. I felt like that guy was unbelievable for a long time.
Yeah.
He had wild hair going out the back. I felt like that guy was a dominant center.
Pouncey was pretty good for a while, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Jason Kelce maybe take a spot there, at least in that top three, which is crazy to see. You see two Eagle offensive linemen that are potentially cracking the code.
The center is the quarterback of the offensive line. He has to get the line in all the right spots. He has to be able to, catch those blitzes and those exotic defenses as they're happening in real time and make sure the offensive line is prepared for them. So that center is super important.
Yeah, well, obviously we ran out of time, so we'll talk about the defensive GOATs on Thursday, but I guess based on our analysis, maybe 2 or 3 current NFL players that could go down as greatest of all time in their position. I think we both agree Tom Brady's not getting touched. There's no running back in the league that's going to crack it. Split decision on wide receiver.
One last question on receiver, though. If Calvin Johnson Megatron plays his full career, where do you think he would have ended up?
Ooh. Does Stafford stay put, or does Stafford still go to L.A.?
He probably Calvin Johnson probably goes somewhere else, but that's the problem. He would have been a guy that would have had all the numbers, but he wouldn't have probably had any rings.
Yeah, no rings, but oh wow, he could be. He's top 3 for sure. He was insane.
He was good.
Yeah, well, it's a receivers league now too, though. So that's the hard part.
Yeah, it is. It's completely different, and then that also makes it kind of impressive for Jared, but. Come on, he was in the West Coast offense too, so there's that too. They invented the short passing game and that helped him to get the most catches in NFL history for sure too.
Yeah. Tyreek Hill though, you ask me, it's Tyreek Hill forever, or Jalen Waddle. They're the two GOATs.
Yeah. Tyreek's got he's kind of a freak athlete, but you can see, that guy works hard.
Oh, yeah.
So I think he's going to be playing for a long time. He's another one of those guys that I don't see him. He doesn't take big hits.
No, he's so good at avoiding those.
Yeah, he's amazing talent. All right, guys. Well, that's episode 36. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be looking to get the next show on the road here. We got some amazing topics. There's a lot going on in the market. If you have enjoyed it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share it with others, join the community, get your money right at myfigures.com. If you need funding for your business, 7 Figures Funding, and our team will help you there. But have a great Tuesday, and we will see you next time on the Go Figure podcast.